Welcome to Secure the Soil. You are now locked in. This is the podcast for exploring California's food system, exploring the future of California's food system. I am Tamu Asir Martin Bay, Islam Tulum Wars. Welcome to some engaging conversations, right? Innovation, sustainability, community health, right? These are my people trying to discover how and where you can contribute to a greener, healthier world, right? And more specifically, us who are here in California. And we're going to start by breaking down the California Agricultural Land Task Force recommendations. That is a mouthful, but we got to do it. We got to do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm back. This is episode 2, right? Welcome back. If you missed it, please go back, see episode 1, right? If you didn't watch it, right, you gotta go back and get some foundational pillars, right? We laid a lot of important groundwork for episode 1. Definitely. We just getting in here, we just getting started. Episode 1 was about what is the Great Agricultural Reset, right? And why I believe that what's happening in California and what's happening in our food system is unlike any other history I've ever seen. And I think that we are just in a perfect time right now, right? And so I also introduced, at the end of that episode, I introduced the 3 keys that I feel like are my approaches. And I think that what the experts have been showing, well, we can actually make some stuff happen, right? So when they talk about us regular people, not just about landowners, not just policymakers, but how everyday people, all of us can get involved, get our hands in the soil. We can actually get in position. We can actually make a difference. And today we're going to take a deeper dive into all 3, which is I'm going to tell you exactly how you can get involved, right? And how you can stay connected and how we can really tap into the task force itself, right? And all the recommendations and everything that it really just has to offer, right? I mean, it's just so much information, so much insight was given that I just feel like I don't think that we really just understand what's going on. So, but before we do all that, get into it too much, I do want to say one more time, like I said, I'm not the expert, right? I have a lot of experience in this ecosystem, very much. I've been doing this for the past, I would say, 7 years. I know a lot of the experts. I have access to the experts. But what I want for all of us is once again to just be learning from each other, developing this community, hear what they have taken years to create, the information they've taken years to provide, and what we call a free report, and we can work with them, and we can all just do our best to implement what's coming and help implement what they have taken a long time to recommend. And I want these recommendations to be something that is living, right? Not something that we hear about or read about, something that we can actually turn into our real reality. And that's what Secure the Soil is all about. I'm glad that you all are here, and I'm here for you all. I'm here for it, right? So let's tap into the 3 keys, right? So episode 1, I introduced the 3 keys, right? Key 1 is to start at a grassroots level, right? Begin where you are with what you actually have, right? Leverage. Key 2 is leveraging AI to use it in order to help educate ourselves, to innovate new approaches, and to implement what we are learning and what we have ideated, right, envisioned. And then key 3 is OPM, right? Accessing all the resources around us, other people's money through advocacy, through grants, through partnerships, through funding, through crowdfunding, through fundraising, right? We can collectively work together and we can take on these steps one by one, right? So let's talk a little bit about this thing we call grassroots strategy. This approach is one I think it gets the most really underestimated from my perspective, because this is how I started and this is what I see. But I want to be really clear that what I say when I'm talking about grassroots, I'm not saying start small and stay small. You feel me? I'm saying use what we already have and the spaces around us, the relationships that we have, the community that we are already a part of and that we belong to as our actual entry point into this work. That's what I mean. like grassroots. So every major initiative I ever been a part of just starts with a group of people who are dedicated to doing this work together. And they just decided to do something consistently and show up and work through it. That's really it. That's the foundation, right? And I believe that is what I call urban agroecology. That is our entry point, right? That is how we could just jump in, caring about our community, where we are, how we are, right? So I want to spend a little bit of time on that concept of urban agroecologist because I'm an urban agroecologist. And some people have said I don't have academia for it, but I understand what the word means. And I've studied the actual word and the definition. And my life is the definition of urban agroecologist. So I believe that many of us are a lot more into ecology than than we really give ourselves credit for, right? I think it's one of the most accessible and one of the most powerful frameworks to just getting started, right? Urban agroecology, or like I like to say, UAE, is really just the application of ecological principles, right? Caring about the whole system, caring about the world, caring about all the things that make up our system, right? And applying it to food production and applying it to us who live in urban environments. That's like growing food on balconies, rooftops, vacant lots, just different community spaces that are already around us that we can just access and develop. And a lot of experts that I've learned from don't treat urban agriculture as just some constellation prize. There are people who don't have a lot of land or who don't have farmland, who don't know how to get farmland, but a lot of people who I've grown around, I've known they can treat urban agriculture as genuine, a powerful model for building community, for building skills, and building the kind of track records that can develop into larger resources. And once again, that's how I started. I just started in my hood, in my community, growing food, and it grew, right? And I do truly believe this is the kind of work that directly connects to what the task force is recommending when it talks about urban agriculture. But we'll dive into that more, right? Like I said, that's episode 3. Let me not get too far ahead of myself, right? But let me be clear. You don't need a bunch of acres right now. You don't need a bunch of acres right now, right? I want to push back directly something that I tend to hear a lot, which is this eye that you need, just a massive amounts of land and millions of dollars before you can even meaningfully get involved with our food system. And you don't. I've been a part of, I've observed, I've seen, I've developed, I've consulted many community people on a city, county, state level who have transformed a small lot into something that fed families, something that trained people how to grow food, something that attracted resources, something that attracted institutional connections and institutional partnerships and grant funding and things like that, right? And you can scale that. That's the main thing. You can scale where you start with, right? You can go from 1 lot to 2 lots to 10 to 3 lots, right? And you can work together, right? The consistency is what you build, right? You're developing consistency, right? And me, I'm really big on community gardens. They're to me, they are a pipeline, right? They are like a jet propulsion. You know what I'm saying? Right? They are not the end goal at all times, but a well-ran community garden can build so many relationships. It can build so many skills. It can build so much credibility with your local community, with your local government, with your local institutions, and with real funders. It can become something that is a public demonstration of what our community can do, like for real. And that demonstration often is what unlocks people to the next level of resources and opportunities. The experts, they tend to call this building your track record in public, right? You're not just growing the food, you're making a case for what your community is capable of doing. So next we have what's called cooperative models, right? That's a part of what you also learn through grassroots, right? It's something that the experts point to very much consistently, right? And that's really deep roots in especially Black, Indigenous, Asiatic agricultural history, especially in this country, right? It's cooperative models, right? Cooperative models are very, very, very necessary, very, very, very helpful. And they're structured where groups of people put their resources, their money, their labor, their land, their knowledge. Everyone brings it together. Everyone shares both the work and everyone shares the benefits. And not one person carries just the full weight of all of this, right? And that way the group can accomplish things that nobody by themselves could ever do alone, right? So if you're thinking about getting involved with all of this work as far as food systems and all that, right? Just start asking who in my community is already thinking about these type of things. Who can I build with? Because really a cooperative model is just one of those pathways that from what I've read in a report that is specifically looked at when thinking about equitable land access, land tenure. But once again, we'll dive more into that in episode 3. So stay tuned for next episode. And also one quick little note, it does help to understand how to diversify revenue really early on. I've seen that, right? These projects, they don't collapse, right? The ones that don't collapse, right? When the funding is going the right way, when revenue is coming from different ways, right? Workshops, educational programming, value added products, right? Partnerships, right? With local restaurants, local chefs, local vendors, farmers markets, event hosting. I can keep going. I mean, community gatherings, right? Different partnerships with art organizations. The list goes on, right? You don't have to wait until you have a large farm to think about the revenue aspect of it, right? You can start with building just multiple different streams of revenue from wherever scale you are operating at right now, right? And this is, once again, this is me laying the groundwork for, as we're going to dive into this equity stuff, right? And these reports, just it's a framework of like how we can approach it right away, right? And so this I'm just going to create like a pathway towards long-term land, right? Give you some game about just what's going on, right? So every community garden, every cooperative, every urban project is from my vantage point a potential step towards something bigger, towards land ownership, towards community land trusts. I've seen that, and towards permanent generational equity. The experts describe this once again as a pipeline, right? You build in community, building credibility, building relationships with institutions, with your local government, and with funders. And over time, those relationships create pathways to the land itself. And this is exactly kind of pipelines that California Agricultural Land Equity Task Force was designed to support, right? So I really do think it's important that their work, we really get the understanding of why their work does matter so much. This report does matter so much, right? Because you can see pathways. Now let's tap into number 2. I mean, we can't avoid it, right? We got to look at AI objectively. I just want to be honest about AI. It's for a lot of people, it feels like something that has just been done to us, or something that we just boom, like something that we just have to deal with, rather than something that we feel like we can actually use. There's so many different things happening. It also can feel like another tool that's just built for people who already have access. I know we're just so far behind, right? And I do hear that. And I have my own frame around it that I'm still navigating. I'm still doing my own inner work around. But for me, it's just I try to use it as a tool, like any other tool, and it depends on who picks this tool up, right, and what they do with this tool. I don't think that AI is good or bad. I think it's just the question is just like what is this going to show us, right? How do we pick this up in service of things and actually try to build? Like, how can we utilize all that is and where we are in time? We can go backwards, right? And so I used to once again educate, innovate, implement. That's my framework that I'm going to always come back to. Once again, educate myself with AI. AI doesn't teach me, but it helps me learn, innovate, come up with constant new ideas, and then implement, right? I use AI to learn faster, to access information and analyze things that will normally take me months. And I try to compile it on my own. I try to use it to kind of think through different strategies, try to draft proposals, try to research funding options. And I use it to innovate, right? I'm constantly trying to find new approaches, test new ideas, objectively model what different scenarios might look like, and then use this that I'm researching to actually implement these ideas, right? To handle some of this operational administrative work that would otherwise would have just taken so much of my time, so much of my mental bandwidth. So, I mean, for me, it's I'm in that loop constantly, right? Educate, innovate, implement. I use it consistently, and that's how I can see myself just because provide, step by step, right? And we kind of all know what AI is capable of doing at this point, right? We don't got to get too specific, but especially if we're talking about in the context of, urban agroecology, starting a community garden, starting at where we are when it comes to grassroots, right? AI can help us with business plans, with researching grants, see what we qualify for. It can help us with drafting, outreach materials, help us with creating content. I mean, things that we tend to already know, right? And especially for us who want to get involved in, advocacy and things of that nature, it can help us with research and legislation, help us with drafting policy comments, help us to prepare for meetings with elected officials, right? Help us with preparing for meetings with their staff as well. And, you know, if we are running something that's kind of cooperative or small, some kind of small business, AI is definitely going to help us with analyzing our market, right? Managing different operations and really just helping us identify opportunities that we might not find on our own or that might take us a longer time to find out. And these aren't hypotheticals, right? This is just people doing this every single day. I don't know how many people in the urban ag and the advocacy space are, but the reality is, especially us in California, we're at such like the birthplace of all this stuff, right? It's happening all around us. It's happening nonstop. I don't see why we ourselves shouldn't be tapping in to it and utilizing it to help us out, right? And it's just they just have different tools that I think I don't want to dive into right now. They have it's just help us with productivity, help us to stay ahead of the game, help us to not get so far behind, right? That's really my main thing because we're in this space, man. We're in this space where it's just going so fast that it's just I'm not here to endorse AI, but I'm here to accept that it exists. And I'm here to accept that there are people who are just winning, in these spaces using tools. And I don't see why we can't utilize these tools, right? I think that it could be a compliment to our community. By no stretch a replacement, but I'm very clear about that, before we move on. You know, AI doesn't replace relationships. Once again, I'm going to be very clear. AI is not going to replace people. AI can't replace community organizing, but let me be very clear. It cannot replace us showing up, right? The best use for AI is just specifically in this context is that it can free up us to do more things that only humans can do, right? Building our trust, having real conversations, organizing people, being present consistently. That is something that AI can't do for us. AI is good at what AI is good at, helping us to optimize and, delegate, but it can't fix nothing for us. It can't fix nothing. We got to fix ourselves, right? Let's go to number three, right? The third key, right? And I think this one, I think it has the potential we have the potential to really move barriers. If we really wrap our minds around number three, right? And I see a lot of people not trying, if we have to access as much resource as possible. And I really want to be clear, like, I'm not talking about go getting large amounts of debt. I'm talking about accessing resources that already exist, resources that are already designated for this kind of work, and making sure that our communities are positioned to receive them, right? That's where I'm at with it. That's really where I'm at with it. There's a lot of money that already exists. And from what I'm hearing, especially reading this report, and I'm hearing what the experts are saying over and over and over, that the money to do the work largely exists, right? There's federal grants, there's state budget allocations, there's foundation endowments, there's community development funds. It's institutional partnerships that we are just waiting to be activated. And I think a challenge is that the resources aren't there in our mind, but I think it's more so the people in our communities don't even know where to go, don't know where they are, and then also we don't have the relationships to really access these, right? To create a framework to even apply for this kind of stuff that can get funded. And I think that's a really big gap that I see that I am trying to close. It's honestly it's another gap that the task force was designed to address at a policy level. And that's a part of the recommendations. That's a part, which once again, we'll go into that. Like there's so many different resources and so many different other reports and so much history, around this initiative that next episode, I want to dive deeper into just the ecosystem around the report, not only the report itself. It's essentially just making a case for something that you believe in to the people who have the power to make it happen. That means showing up to city council meetings, calling, emailing your assembly members' office, building relationships with, state elected officials, finding coalitions that are already doing this work and joining them, right? Going in spaces and just adding your voice to theirs, listening for a long time, but adding your voice, adding your perspective, adding your history, right? Learning how to write policy comments, learning how to speak at public hearings, learning how to make your community's needs very legible to systems that are allocating the resources. None of this requires a law degree. It just requires consistency, honestly, man. It requires just building relationships. And both of those are buildable by anybody, for real. Like anybody can do it. I've done it. There's so much grants, there's so much funding from our government, federal, city, county, city, right? The USDA, with all of its intricacies, does have resources that are designed for beginning farmers, for agriculture, food justice work. There's so many programs in California with real money attached to it. And there are a lot of county things, a lot of city things. There's a lot of foundation and nonprofit grants. Applying for this stuff, it does take time and it does take skills and it does have trial and error, but it is learnable. There are entire organizations whose whole purpose is to help communities access these young resources. Turn this down. And once again, part of the show is we're going to be diving into those and we're going to connect you with those organizations as well, right? But a really main thing when it comes to this initiative is really just developing relationships that can unlock funding, right? It's something from my own experience, my own advocacy experience, that the grant application is usually just the last step, not the first step, right? What actually unlocks resources and funding is the relationships you've built before you even submit an application, right? With these program officers, with people at the foundations, with staff out of government agencies, with staff of our elected officials who will advocate on our behalf, right? And we have to show up consistently at the public meetings, at community events, at these policy briefings, right? And developing these relationships, it does matter so much because you're not just learning, right? You are also being seen. You're also building a level of trust that can make people want to support what it is you're doing. And that's really big, right? And I think another thing that we got to realize is that we can align with what's already being built, right? That's very, very, very important from my vantage point. Like you don't have to build everything from scratch. As I talk about, I joined so many different organizations, right? You can in fact just build something with something that's already attached to, right? And trying to build something for yourself kind of will slow you down, right? But you can find the right organizations who doing what you want to do, learn from them, add your energy to what they got going on. And over time, those relationships will open doors that would have taken you years to open on your own, right? Once again, the California Agricultural Land Task Force, right, which is under the Strategic Growth Council. Those are different organizations that I will walk you through in episode 3. What is the Strategic Growth Council, right? These are all structures that are already built and are already operating, right? The task force is already done. It's already made their recommendations. Our job is to learn how to plug into what has already been done, right? And then how do we really bring all of this really together? Like bring it all together. We're talking about all 3 of those keys, right? Those are 3 keys, right? So let's talk about, like I said, how does this all make sense, right? Right. Grassroots AI and just OPM, child adoption, right? Your grassroots strategy, it can build the community foundation and the track record, right? These AIs might give you the tools to operate more efficiently and access information faster. And accessing resources can give you a framework to grow beyond what you could do alone, to fund you, to support you, right? And these work best when they work together, right? You don't have to have all 3 going on from day one soon as you start, but you can just start and then you can go. But the most important thing is just starting, right? So that's what I gotta say for episode 2. Now I'm gonna talk about what's coming on next episode 3, right? Because this is episode 3 is we're gonna get more specific, right? We're gonna go directly to the source. I'm gonna walk you through the California Agriculture Land Task Force page, right? What is this task force? Where it came from? How it got structured? and most importantly, what it has already produced. I'm going to be walking you through what is a strategic growth councils and go to their website, show you some resources that are already available right now, different graphs, different Excel sheets, different reports, right? And show you what most people in communities have never even looked at. Like the work has already been done, and that is very, very, very significant. There are already pathways that are already in place and very real. And once you see them, I think a lot of things that you felt might have been unclear are going to come into some focus, right? But it's time for y'all to join the movement. Before I let you go, I want to talk about how you all can be a part of what we are building over here through Osiris Bridge. This show is not just a podcast. Y'all know that this is the beginning of a movement around land equity, around our food system change in California. And these movements are going to need real people. They need voices, they need community, they need people who are paying attention and who are willing to show up, right? So yeah, I am. I'm asking y'all that if this show is adding any value to you, I know it's only 2 episodes in, but if this show is adding any value to you right now, subscribe, right, wherever you are, hit the follow, right, share it wherever you're listening, right, hit the button, turn notifications on. Every episode we release from here is going out into really deepening these recommendations, deepening this work. And this show is meant for real people and real communities. So yeah, feel free to leave comments. Tell me what you all want to explore. Tell me any questions you all have about the task force. Tell me what barriers you all are facing, right? And as this show does get better and we get stronger and I get better, I want you all a part of the conversation. So share it, send this episode to somebody in your community who you think needs to hear it. And just share it to one person, right? And that's how we're going to get this thing going. That's how we're going to grow this whole initiative, right? And for all the organizations out there and different partners out there, if you are an organization or a business or foundation or an institution that is continuing to care about our food justice, land equity, and the future of California's agricultural community, I do want to talk to you. Definitely. I want to talk to you all. Right? This show is going to be reaching out to the exact communities at the center of this land transition. And we are looking for partners who want to be a part of this conversation, right? Not just as sponsors, but as collaborators, as co-learners. And if that's you and you feel like that, right, the information to reach out to us is in the description, for real. So once again, I'm not coming as someone who got all the answers. I'm coming as someone who has spent years in this ecosystem, asking questions, sharing my voice, and I have access to these experts. And I genuinely believe that more people in our communities deserve access to what these experts know, and especially what the task force has done is very serious work. What the Strategic Growth Council has built is real infrastructure for us, and the pathways are right here. Now, what I think is missing is the awareness at scale and the connection to this. What I think is missing is community of people who are paying attention and are ready to act, especially my community. And that's what I'm trying to build right here with Secure the Soil. I want these recommendations to be living, and in real life, I want us to love and respect the nuances and the layers, right? The reciprocity of all of this. That's what I'm doing. That's what I want to do. I want to contribute, right? Episode 3 is going to drop real soon. I will see you all. Peace, blessings, and love.